Mark chapter 5, starting at verse 1, and it reads, "So they arrived at the other side of the lake, in the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus climbed out of the boat, a man possessed by an evil spirit came out from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the burial caves and could no longer be restrained, even with a chain. Whenever he was put into chains and shackles, as he often was, he snapped the chains from his wrist and smashed the shackles. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Day and night he wandered among the burial caves in the hills, howling and cutting himself with sharp stones. When Jesus was still some distance away, the man saw him, ran to meet him, and bowed low before him. With a shriek, he screamed, 'Why are you interfering with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In the name of God, I beg you, don't torture me.' For Jesus had already said to the spirit, 'Come out of the man, you evil spirit.' Then Jesus demanded, 'What is your name?' And he replied, 'My name is Legion, because there are many of us inside this man.' This evil spirit begged him again and again not to send them to some distant place. There happened to be a large herd of pigs feeding on the hillside nearby. 'Send us into those pigs,' the spirits begged. 'Let us enter them.' So Jesus gave them permission. The evil spirits came out of the man and entered the pig, and the entire herd of about 2,000 pigs plunged down the steep hillside into the lake and drowned in the water." I'll stop there for now. If you will, before you take your seats, help me introduce the title for today's message. Everyone say, "The Miracle of Deliverance." You may take your seats. The miracle of deliverance. When I was young, starting in about junior high, I'll never forget that I was often plagued with depression. It was one of those weird things I couldn't put my finger on. I didn't know why I would be depressed. My family was good. My father was at home. My parents cared deeply for me. We weren't rich, but it was very little that I was in need of. I remember often being made fun of by kids, but I feel like that happens to everybody. We all have our things. Now, my things happened to be that I was short, something I couldn't help, and that I was hefty, something I could have helped. But both of those gave rise to people consistently talking about me. It began to change my self-esteem and change the way I saw myself. And so I developed some amazing coping mechanisms. One of those was you try not to care. So you try not to care about what people say. You know, you say things, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." As much as I wanted to live into that truth, it never was true for me. Words hurt, and they hurt deeply. And I would carry them with me all the time. So I longed to do what they did to me back to them. So I developed a prowess of how to talk about other people. In fact, it became another coping mechanism. I figured if I could talk about somebody bad enough, then people would be wary to talk about me because you weren't sure if you might win this battle. So I would say things that would terrorize other people. You wouldn't just say the nice stuff, but you would really try to go to the heart. And nothing seemed to make me feel better than when I made somebody cry. As I thought about this, man, that really started to become a dark past, something I wouldn't want to lift up as a thing to do, but I recognized it was a truth in me. And as much as I was able to develop this coping mechanism, it still never dealt with the depression. Nor did it touch the suicidal ideations that I began to develop in 6th and 7th grade. Everything in my life would suggest that I was okay. And yet I was terrorized, tormented by the demons of my own life. Until one fateful day, as I'm standing with the idea of just the way that I would end it all, I promise, I put before God, if you are real, if you care about me, if there's any way that you want me to continue, then I need you to show up today. I need you to show up in such a way that you won't allow what I'm getting ready to do to happen. And as God graciously did, somebody randomly showed up while I was talking to God, asked a question and inquired about me, told me in that moment that they were looking for me. They had missed me and they wanted me to be a part of what they were doing. And that was just enough to get me from doing something that would have changed the entire course of my life. Now, that was a small miracle, one my parents may never have known about, one that may never have risen to the top, but had such huge implications. And as much as that moment happened for me, and I believe it started me in the right way, it didn't clear away all the demons that still followed me for years. And I remember I was at a church service. And, this is prior to me being, prior to the internet being full of all the ways that we laugh at churches for doing stuff. And I'll never forget that there's a preacher up there preaching, talking all about all of the issues that I felt like I was the only one in the room. I'll never forget him doing an altar call and asking for a group full of high school students to come to the altar and that they were going to pray for us. I remember watching this, and if you've never been around a service like this, man, it could be scary. People were falling out. Folks were speaking in languages I did not recognize, and I felt tremendously uncomfortable. But something told me to stay at the altar. I never forget, as this pastor is going through praying for folks, he gets to this moment where he gets to me. And I felt like everything in the room went quiet. He came down and laid his hand on my head. And it felt like I felt the warmth coming off of his hand into my body. I remember him saying, "You tell God what you want God to do for you." And I didn't even know what to ask for. But I remember saying, "I'm willing to be and to do whatever you want me to. But God, I need you to take this pain away." And I remember him praying for me. And I remember feeling the very love of God shower over me. And I say that to give rise to this moment that I know I'm not the only one. And I know it may not have always looked the same way. Doesn't always have to be somebody laying hands on you or speaking directly into your situation. Sometimes you're just close enough to the Word of God. Sometimes you're driving and you hear a song. Sometimes you're reading your Bible in your own private time, or sometimes one of your friends says something right at the right moment to let you know that God is listening. But what I do know is something special happens when you walk away knowing you have been delivered. There was this YouTube clip of a young man saying, "I've been delivered." And I felt bad because a few years back when I watched it, I laughed. I laughed because in that moment I recognized that he was playing off of something that was so real. And so many other people laughed too. But then we start actually laughing at what God actually could be wanting and desiring for us. What I love about this text is it is so striking It is so far away from our lived reality in some ways that we can easily cast it off into the miraculous that don't really happen is some other analogy for. And don't get me wrong, I think there's a far bit of symbolism and analogy there. But I also think that there's amazing truth there. Let us investigate this story. Jesus is now crossing the Sea of Galilee. And this is important because this is communicating to us that he's leaving out of Jewish territory. He has stepped now into Gentile land. And of course, the expectation for Gentile land is that things are not good. And the first person that he encounters, this is why we hear unclean or evil spirits. This helps to let us know what we should be expecting going into a place and the people that are far from God. And the story tells us that as Jesus steps out the boat, it gives us a bit of background. That not only is this a challenging place, but there is one man in particular that seems to embody the very essence of what it is like to be far away from God. There is a man who has been possessed by an evil spirit. And this man who is possessed is not just possessed in some way that makes him do a few bad things, but he has now been pushed and ostracized, pushed to the outskirts of society. He is living at the cemetery. His life is so bad, his issues are so deep that he cannot live amongst the living, but he must find life among the dead. That is so bad for him. It is so weighing that the best place he can be is a place where there is nothing else to harm but himself. Scripture says that he finds this man, that this man now has known not to be able to be contained. That the society and the community around him have over and over again tried to control him, tried to subdue him. And no matter what they put on him, chains or not, he breaks them and goes free. The people are scared of him. And every time he walks up, I know he sees in them everything that they think about him. That every single interaction he has with somebody is now tempered by what he has done previously. You're the one that tore that place up before. You're the one that did that thing before. You're the one that broke out. You're the one that harmed that individual before. You are that. And in fact, even when we get to know him, we know him not by his name, but by his issue. Man possessed by demons. Now, what we don't know is how he got this way. What we don't know is what transpired in his life to lead him to this particular position. But we do know that now he's living among the tombs. And if I can take just a bit of exegetical freedom, if I can lift this up, if we do look at this not just as physical reality, spiritual reality, as demon possession, but we also recognize that sometimes the demons that we carry come from past experiences that we've been through. What we are saying is that this man has probably been through some stuff, has seen some things, has experienced some things that now he has not been able to free himself from. And so not only does he victimize, but he has been a victim. And what we deal with in this moment is all the things that have happened before. And I want to recognize that I know that this is in the middle of Mental Health Month. And I say this because I think that there are individuals here who need to hear that you need to deal with those demons of the past. Come on. Those things that we carry into our future. And believe me, I am spiritual. I believe in God. I pray that deliverance will happen today. But also I believe that there are therapists and mental health resources that can help you. Because half of some of the things that we deal with, half of the issues that we have with other people is that we bring the demons from our past into our present, and we wonder why we can't deal with nobody. Somebody hurt you doesn't mean that everybody is trying to hurt you. Somebody lied to you doesn't mean everybody's trying to lie to you. And sometimes you've been lied to and hurt so much that you don't have the bandwidth to care for somebody else. Not until you deal with it. This man now cannot be dealt with, and he doesn't even know how to deal with himself. Scripture says that then Jesus, while he is afar off, the man sees him. And I want you to hear this. I want you to see this duality that's happening. Scripture says, then he runs to Jesus and bows low. Now, this is the interplay that I have that seems inconsistent for me. The evil spirit wants nothing to do with Jesus. Okay. Follow me, because listen to the response. Verse 7 says that he screams, right? So we're back and forth. Is this the man? Is this the evil spirit within him? Why are you interfering with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In the name of God, I beg you not to torture me. In the name of you, I ask you not to bother me. Jesus is God, and you ask Jesus in his very own name, not anyway. If you don't want Jesus to bother you, why run towards Jesus? Listen, I done got picked on a whole bunch in my life. I was the short, roly-poly kid. I knew that there are some things that if I didn't want to happen, you don't run towards, you run away from. But I think what we're hearing here is that some of us are just like this man. That although the demons are there, we just have just enough to hold on. And sometimes even when we can't ask for it, all we can do is get close enough in proximity to and hope that God might see us for more than what everybody else does. Might be able to see through the words, may be able to know that what is coming out of my mouth ain't really what's in my heart, but it's something else. And if you can just get me right, God, if you could just see me for who I really want to be, if you could just see me for who I really am, God, I'm not everything that I was, I'm not everything that I've done, I'm not every place that I've been, but God, if you could just see me, God, I don't want to be what I have been, I don't want to keep doing what I've been doing, but I don't even know how to articulate that I need to be set free. If I could just get close to you. Please, God, if I could just get close to you. And can I say this? Can I say this? Push pin, because I'm going to keep preaching that. If that could be the case, then we ought to be able to meter out even more grace when people come to church. Hold on, watch this. Hold on, hear me. Because we'll say something like, the church shouldn't be the place where this is happening. Assuming that because you made it to church, that you are right. Not assuming that you barely made it to church today. You don't even know how to articulate what you need, but you're just hoping that if you could get into the presence of the Most High God, that he will see you, transform you, free you, and change you, and then you meet somebody else that blames you for just trying to get there. This man, he didn't have all the right way. He didn't know everything to do. But at best, with the little bit of control of himself that he had, he ran to Jesus. This man whose pain was so deep that the best thing he could do was inflict physical pain to take away from the mental anguish. This man who was tortured on the inside, so he said, I might as well torture myself on the outside, so at least then I match. Because sometimes you just got to coordinate. He said, if I could just get to him. And he gets to Jesus. And watch this. The Spirit said, why are you bothering us? And they go on a conversation. I'm not going to even deal with the fact that Jesus was in conversation with the Spirit. That's a whole nother thought, right? But what I will say is that Jesus spoke to the man's issues. Before he even dealt with the man, Jesus was able to see and speak to his issues. And then he did something better. He said, identify yourself. What is your name? And this is when the scripture blows open. Well, if you want an individual name, that's going to be a problem. Call us Legion. Because what everybody else thought was just one problem is many. Now, if you know Roman culture, you know that a legion wasn't just like one or two. It wasn't five, right? It was ranks of men, sometimes upward of 1,000. This man was burdening hundreds to thousands of problems. And the only thing he could do was barely keep himself alive. And when it was exposed that this is all happening, they asked, well, how about you just put us into those pigs? Now watch this. It's 2,000 pigs. And this is the thing that blew my mind. When Jesus says, fine, I can't even process. Fine, go to the pigs, right? The pigs immediately killed themselves. The pigs couldn't take for 1 second what this man had been living with his entire life. There's some of you out there, and you've been looking at yourself like you've been weak because of what you've been going through, what's been happening to you and your demons. And you let everybody else make you feel that way because they talk about your issues. But you don't even recognize that the very fact that you held it together this long, that the very fact that you haven't committed suicide, that the very fact that you haven't given up, that the very fact that you still here is already a strength in itself. If they had to deal with what you had to deal with, they wouldn't be able to make it. But you still here, you still strong, you still held it together long enough to get to Jesus. 2,000 pigs couldn't deal with it for a moment. This man had been carrying this for his lifetime. Finally, he gets a moment of freedom. Finally, come out of him. Leave him alone. Let him be free now. Let's pick up the story. He says, send us, this is verse 11, large herd of pigs. Sends them there. Jesus gives them permission, verse 13. Evil spirits come out into the pigs, and about 2,000 plunge down steep hillside and drown in the water. Verse 14. The herdsmen fled to the nearby town and the surrounding countryside, spreading the news as they ran. People rushed out to see what happened. A crowd soon gathered around Jesus, and they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons. And he was sitting there, fully clothed, perfectly sane. And they were all afraid. They were afraid of him when he was possessed. And they were afraid of him when he was free. Let me tell you something. If you keep looking for your identification in them, if you keep hoping they're going to reflect who you really are, If you keep looking for somebody else to reflect back to you what God says you are, they're going to be scared of you when you're messed up, and they're going to be scared of you when you get free. You better look to Jesus to figure out who you are, because you're not what they say you are. You are who he says. The scripture says they were scared both ways. Now, the movie writer in me will be honest. It's even scarier for crazy people to look sane. Come on, let's be honest, right? We don't always trust the deliverance. And sometimes the scariest moment ain't the moment where somebody is flipping off the handle. It's when they not. Have you ever, come on, some of you, I know y'all done had some mothers out there that they done went off the handle. All of a sudden they went to their room and got real quiet, and they came back and said, you know what, whoa, why you so calm? Why you talking with that voice, mama? Why you moving so, wait a minute, why you so cautiously mean? What are you about to do to me? I don't trust it. They don't believe it. And he says, they were still afraid of him. All these people rushed out. Everybody knew about the guy. Everybody knew where he was living. Everybody knew his issues. Then they said, verse 16, then those who had seen what happened told others about the demon-possessed man and the pigs. And the crowd began pleading with Jesus to go away and leave them alone. Watch this. The last person in the text that asked Jesus to leave them alone was an evil spirit. The people were acting like he was the only one that was demonically possessed. Oh, you missed it. The problem was the crowd had demons too. And if you are looking for demon-possessed folk to rightly see you, they always gonna misunderstand and missee you because they got demons themselves. He says, the very same thing that the evil spirit said that he wanted Jesus to leave him alone, the crowd asked. But there's a difference. Read the next verse. He said, leave them alone. And as Jesus was getting into the boat, one man, many demons, meets Jesus and gets deliverance. A crowd with many demons meets Jesus and he leaves. This seems to suggest that deliverance only comes to those who want it. I think you missed it. The freedom that comes with deliverance comes at a cost. It cost 2,000 pigs for this one man. And when the crowd started to assess their lives, started to quantify what they needed and what they wanted, they weren't sure if they can foot the bill for what deliverance could be. So instead of now standing in front of the healer, the deliverer, the savior, and asking for more deliverance, healing, and saving, they recognized that since it would be a cost, they assumed that the cost would be so high they could not pay it. So the only thing they asked was, why don't you just leave us alone? And I know that might sound bad coming from this crowd, but I sadly say that there are probably too many of us that are just like this crowd, that God has been available. He has stood at our door willing to give us the deliverance. And instead of giving God access to that space in your heart, to that spot in your life, we said, God, it costs too much. You want too much. I can't afford it right now. Can you just leave me alone? How many times have we sent God away in a boat because we didn't want to foot the bill for what it was going to cost? Now, this man had nothing else. When you have nothing, you don't mind losing everything because you ain't got nothing. Some of you, the best thing God did for you was allow you to hit rock bottom. No, see, we saying amen like we really, no. I'm talking about the real rock bottom. Some of you know what it's like to be at the end of the bottle, at the end of the addiction, when all family has left, has walked out, and that was the best thing for you because you never would have chosen if you had anything else. But what if you didn't have to get there? What if God could have grabbed you before you lost it all? Could have grabbed you before there were thousands of issues to deal with. Could have grabbed you while you still had some ability and influence. What if God could have grabbed you then? How many times have we sent him away? God, I'm not willing to pay that price. You want me to change my life? You want me to stop going there? You want me to start living right? You actually expect me to live the scriptures? I thought only the preacher had to do that. Ain't it just for the choir members? You mean you want me to know the Bible backwards and forwards? You actually want me to tell people about you? If I don't tell them about you, then they won't really know I know about you. Then they won't hold me to the standard of what I should be living. So how about I just be quiet so nobody knows what I'm really going through, and then I can look good on the outside while I'm harboring demons on the inside. I can look like I'm all right, but I can be the terror that keeps walking into the sanctuary, and people wonder why it's hard to worship. Sometimes it's hard to worship because the worshipers have brought the demons into worship. And we don't want to let them go because they've become comfortable. I know my demons. I've made peace with my demons. In fact, my demon works out for me sometimes. Sometimes I call on my demon when I go into the office because they going to keep testing me, and I'm going to show them just how demonic I can be. Me and my demon's friends. We kick it sometimes. Sometimes they stay a little too long. Sometimes they make me pay for it. But oftentimes, it's kind of cool hanging out with them. And then the only way we get it is for God to push us all the way rock bottom. But can I tell you, it doesn't have to be that way. The same God that blessed that man is available to bless us. And this is what I want you to hear. It's that the miracle of deliverance can happen right where you are. I want you to be honest. I want you to think about your life. I want you to think about your challenges. I want you to identify those demons. Those things that don't want to be named. What are the ugly things in your past? Things that have deformed your character. Changed the way you look at people. What are the things you still do? And if you can't think about it, let me ask this. What are the things that force you to go to other coping mechanisms to deal with? We talk about it all the time. It's not wrong to have a drink. Absolutely it's not. It's not wrong to have wine. I'm fine with all that. Some of you, that's not what you're doing. You're covering. You're trying to drown away. You want to numb it. That becomes the problem because then you depend on it. And then you can't deal with life when it's not numb. And then you wonder why we've leaned into alcoholism as opposed to just having one drink. You can't wake up without thinking about it. Same thing happens with medications of all types. And sometimes they're prescription, but sometimes you got you a dealer. Right? And then you start seeing this stuff start metering through down to your children and your grandchildren. And we're watching because we got all these unresolved issues that we've never dealt with. And now they begin to move into our families. And our families are dealing with the same stuff. Kids committing suicide because they haven't dealt with the stuff that's been all through the family. When will we deal with it? When is it going to be important enough for you to get free so you can be an emblem, a freedom marker for somebody else? Some of our kids are tore up because of us. Killing generations by us. Walking with our own demons. They wonder why our kids don't want to come to church. They don't want to come because they say, if you go there and you live like this at home, what do I want to go there for? Let's be honest. Can we be honest for a minute? There's no love given to them. You don't care about them. You treat them any old type of way. They see the way you live and they say, if it's so good, what's up with you? This man had everything taken from him. And man, this I'm closing. I thought about this, right, because, I'm gifted with the space to be able to communicate, the truth of God, and oftentimes God giving you space to speak to other things. And this week was hard. Last week was too, because I didn't even want to address the Buffalo situation. I didn't want to address that there's evil that not only shows up but plans. That has a desire to make sure that I am scared no matter where I go. Amen. That every time my children leave my house, I'm not always sure if they'll make it back. And because it brought up the demons in me. I was so angry. Amen. And I pray that y'all forgive me. I'm going to say this not because I want to justify it, but to speak because I know that there might be other people that are like this. Amen. That I got to the point where I didn't want to see anything white. White music turned me off. White television. I became super black. Like it was like 2 days. It was like if it wasn't completely, I didn't want nothing to do with it. And that was a failure in me. That was the demons rising up in me, creating the same thing that shooter lived into. How much history, how many demons are so many of us carrying because we won't deal with them? So, today, it has been my prayer. It's been my prayer all week that God will provide an opportunity for deliverance. I've been praying all week for you. And the gift is, all you got to do is want it. Now, let me be very clear. When you have moments of deliverance, sometimes people think, oh, that means as soon as I walk out the door, there's going to be no more problems. Nah, that doesn't exactly work that way. But also, sometimes we think that means that we don't also have to do additional work to tend to our deliverance. Meaning that there can be times where you get delivered, you are freed in this moment, And then you invite right back the things that you've been freed from. So, let me help us. I'll close with this part of Scripture. Now, verse 18 says, as Jesus was getting into the boat, then the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. But Jesus said, no. This is weird, because finally somebody had saw this man for who he was, and not just his problem, and he wanted to stay with Jesus. Jesus, man, let me be one of the boys. Let me be one of the guys, man. Let me roll with you. I'm willing to do whatever you want me to do. Jesus is like, yeah, I know that you want to be with me, but I have a better assignment for you. I want you to go home to your family and tell them everything the Lord has done for you and how merciful he has been to you. Now, in my spiritual mind, I imagine that some of the demons that this man was dealing with probably came from the family he was no longer around. I imagine that some of the scars that he had on his body were because they left him too. I imagine now that the words that Jesus may be saying to this man are even more difficult because he's sending him to the people that had already walked away from. Well, God, when I was at my lowest, when I had nothing, when I couldn't control myself, when issues were keeping on me, they left me, God. But you're telling me that you want me to go to them. He says, I want you to go, and I want you to tell them everything that the Lord has done for you. I want you to speak about the mercy of God. And watch this. So the man started off to visit the 10 towns of the region and began to proclaim the great things Jesus had done for him. And everyone was amazed at what he told them. That the man cemented his deliverance by his willingness to go back to all the places that hurt him. All the places he had been. All the places that acquired the demons along his journey. And now went back as a changed man. Sometimes the greatest thing God wants for you is to be the witness for the gift that he has been. To open your mouth and speak to the goodness of God. To not be scared of being judged by who you were and what you did, but to be able to speak truthfully to what God has done. Then our freedom becomes because now we are surrounded by people that have not just been good always, but have gone through some things. And if they have gone through them and God brought them out, if they have been challenged and God set them free, if they have been oppressed and now they stand tall, well, guess what? Maybe I can be too. So that's what my prayer is. That today we will begin to live into the truths of what God is doing in us and for us. That we might really attain the deliverance that is available. Because it truly is a miracle. Pray with me.